Charlotte, a woman seeking connection, often felt the weight of loneliness pressing on her heart. Her husband, Richard, was a relentless entrepreneur, utterly absorbed in his ambitions. Though she was captivated by his relentless drive, her heart ached for the tender moments that seemed just out of reach. An innocent brush of fingers or a glance that spoke volumes of his awareness of her presence. As the days passed, their union fell into a monotonous cadence, stripped of any thrill or passion. Charlotte's days merged into a haunting tapestry within their expansive home, where the silence wrapped around her like a shroud, and her own tumultuous thoughts echoed in the emptiness. Everything shifted the moment Nathan, an old friend from her past, returned home after years away. At 25, Nathan radiated an undeniable allure, his confidence casting a captivating glow that drew everyone in. Yet there was an undercurrent of longing in his gaze, hinting at the complexities of his heart. He had just returned from studying abroad, enveloped in an aura of allure and complexity that drew her in like a moth to a flame. Charlotte felt an undeniable pull as his laughter echoed through the house, transforming its once desolate corners into a realm of warmth and longing. Ensure you subscribe to my channel, allowing me to weave more captivating tales that tug at the heart and explore the depths of love and longing. Make sure to watch this video until the very end and give it a like, for this tale promises to be deeply captivating. One fateful evening, after the warmth of the shower had enveloped her, Charlotte stood before the mirror, her heart racing as she dried her hair, lost in thoughts that both thrilled and tormented her. With a hesitant breath, she reached behind her, unclasping the delicate fabric that had confined her, allowing it to cascade down her shoulders before it fell softly onto the bed, a symbol of her surrender to the moment. For a fleeting moment, she stood before the mirror, lost in thought, her breath coming in quiet sighs as she wrestled with unspoken emotions. Clad solely in her bottoms, she experienced a mix of vulnerability and liberation within the sanctuary of her room. Suddenly the door creaked open, and Charlotte spun around, a rush of instinct compelling her to shield herself from the unexpected intrusion. "Nathan?" Her breath caught in her throat, his face burned with a deep crimson hue as he averted his eyes. Yet his gaze remained tethered for a heartbeat longer than what propriety would allow. My heart raced as he spoke, his voice laced with a vulnerability that tugged at my soul. "I'm sorry, I thought you were downstairs," he murmured, the weight of his embarrassment hanging heavy in the air between us. Her heart raced, a tumultuous blend of shame and an undeniable longing that stirred within her, elusive yet intoxicating. "You need to knock," she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper, laced with an unspoken longing. "I'm sorry," Nathan whispered, his voice heavy with regret. "I'll go," he murmured, yet his feet remained rooted in place. Instead, his gaze returned to hers, his expression a tumultuous blend of remorse and an unspoken longing. "Nathan," Charlotte began, her voice soft yet laced with an unspoken urgency. "It's fine, just close the door, please." He complied, closing the door softly, yet lingering in the moment, torn between duty and desire. "I never intended to intrude," he murmured, his gaze cast downward, "but you occupy my thoughts endlessly." Charlotte stood still, her heart racing. "What are you trying to say?" she inquired with a gentle whisper. Nathan stepped forward, a flicker of determination igniting within him as the weight of their unspoken connection hung heavily in the air. "I've always held a deep admiration for you, Charlotte," he revealed, "but now that I'm here again, my feelings have grown into something far more intense. Your presence captivates me, drawing my gaze in a way I cannot resist." Charlotte felt a lump in her throat, the air between them heavy with unvoiced desires and the weight of their circumstances. "Nathan, this feels like crossing a line we can't ignore," she murmured, uncertainty lacing her voice. He intruded upon the moment. "Then why does it seem so destined?" Before she could utter a word, he was there, his hand grazing her arm, igniting a shiver that coursed through her very being. She remained close, defying the world around them. Instead, she met his gaze, her own determination shattering like glass. "You're still so naive, you don't grasp the weight of your words," she whispered, her voice trembling with doubt. "I'm fully aware of what I'm expressing," he responded. "You are worthy of deep desire and affection." His words unraveled her carefully built walls. As he drew closer, she found herself unable to pull away. Their lips brushed together in a tentative embrace, a spark igniting as desire enveloped them both. Nathan's hands lingered on her waist, his grip both assertive and tender, as though he feared shattering the enchantment that surrounded them. Charlotte surrendered to the moment, her arms entwining around his neck, as the world faded away in the heat of their embrace. After so long, a spark ignited within her, awakening feelings of longing, vitality, and a deep sense of being treasured. As they reluctantly separated, their breaths uneven and heavy, Charlotte's voice quivered as she finally found the courage to speak. "Nathan," she whispered, "this is wrong." He murmured back, "Yet here we are," their foreheads touching, the weight of their choices hanging in the air. Charlotte closed her eyes, caught in the tumult of her heart's longing and the relentless whisper of caution. But as Nathan tenderly cradled her cheek, she sensed that this moment would alter the course of their lives forever. She took a step back, her arms wrapping protectively around herself as the gravity of the moment settled in, leaving her heart heavy with unspoken emotions. Her heart raced wildly, each beat echoing in her ears, drowning out the chaos of her mind. Nathan stood there, his breath ragged, his eyes burning with an intensity that spoke of unspoken desires. "We can't," she murmured once more, yet the sentiment offered no solace to either of their hearts. "This feels so wrong." Nathan edged nearer, his voice a soft caress, yet resolute. "Confess to me that you didn't experience a spark, Charlotte. Tell me that what we feel is nothing more than a fleeting thought." He cradled her hands, tenderly resting them against his heart, and leaned in to kiss her once more, their connection deepening with each stolen moment. She hesitated, uncertainty swirling in her mind as she took a step back, grappling with the weight of the moment, the world around them fading away as they surrendered to the intensity of their connection, momentarily disregarding the boundaries that separated them. She gazed up at him, her lips quivering as she sought a response, the weight of their unspoken connection hanging heavily in the air. The truth was inescapable. "Nathan, it's not simple," she whispered, her voice laced with a bittersweet longing. "It need not be so," he murmured, extending his hand toward hers, his fingers grazing her skin, igniting a fire within her that was impossible to dismiss. "I am unbothered by the constraints, indifferent to the opinions of others. My feelings for you run deep." Charlotte withdrew her hand, wrapping her arms protectively around herself, a barrier against the emotions swirling within her. "You simply can't. I comprehend your words. This is perilous, Nathan, for the both of us." "Then let's step back before we make a choice we regret," he said, his voice tight with emotion. "I've never experienced such intense emotions before, Charlotte. I can't simply ignore its undeniable presence." Her determination faltered beneath the weight of his passionate declarations and the heat of his lingering stare. She averted her gaze, struggling to calm the tumult within her chest. "You must leave," she murmured, her voice a fragile breath in the heavy air. "Oh, Nathan, please." Nathan paused, a storm of emotions swirling within him, his jaw clenched as he weighed the consequences of crossing the line. At last he gave a reluctant nod, yet the anguish in his gaze was all too clear. With a heavy heart, he whispered, stepping closer to the threshold. Before departing, he cast one last look at her, his gaze heavy with unfulfilled desire. "But this is far from the end, Charlotte. I can sense it within you as well." The door clicked shut, leaving Charlotte in solitude, her mind a tempest of longing and unfulfilled passion. She collapsed onto the edge of her bed, her hands covering her face as the weight of her heartache consumed her. What had she sacrificed? The following days drifted by in a fog of evasion. Charlotte buried herself in housework and errands, seeking every possible distraction to avoid the magnetic pull of Nathan. Yet, despite her relentless efforts, she found herself ensnared by the haunting recollection of his caress, his whispered promises, and the intense blaze that had ignited within their souls. Nathan, however, was not one to fade into the shadows. Late one evening, as Charlotte stood washing dishes in the kitchen, she felt the weight of his presence behind her. "I can't keep pretending everything's fine," he said, his voice unwavering yet heavy with unspoken feelings. Charlotte placed the dish down with trembling hands, her heart racing as she turned to meet his gaze. "Nathan, we had a pact." "No," he interjected, closing the distance between them. "You consented, but I never could. Please, don't make this any more difficult," she pleaded, her voice quivering with emotion. "I'm not trying to complicate things," he murmured, his voice laced with a bittersweet tenderness. "I'm striving to bring it to life." Before she could voice her objections, he bridged the distance that separated them, his hands tenderly cradling her face. His lips hovered near hers, hesitant, yet yearning for a sign to cross the boundary. This time, Charlotte surrendered to the inevitable pull of her heart. She leaned in, her fingers entwined with his, as the dam of emotions burst forth at last. The kiss deepened, a culmination of all the hidden feelings that had long been simmering beneath the surface. Nathan's hands found their way to her waist, drawing her nearer, as the world around them faded into a distant memory. For the first time in years, Charlotte felt an undeniable longing as they separated, their foreheads lingering together, breaths heavy and hearts pounding in a tumultuous rhythm. "We'll find a way," Nathan murmured, his voice laced with a mix of hope and despair, "united in a world that keeps them apart." Charlotte closed her eyes, her heart aching, yet she could not resist the magnetic draw he had on her. For the first time, she dared to embrace the allure of a connection that was both tantalizing and fraught with danger, a temptation that felt utterly irresistible. The days that followed unfolded like a delicate waltz, each step laden with unspoken tension and longing. Every interaction between Charlotte and Nathan crackled with an undeniable tension, a force neither could resist. In the dim light of the kitchen, their eyes met for a brief moment, a spark igniting in the silence. Each encounter was laced with unspoken tension, their fingers grazing ever so slightly as they navigated the narrow hall, a bittersweet reminder of what could never be. Despite Charlotte's initial defiance, the barriers she had erected around her heart slowly started to fall away. On a still evening, as the world outside faded into a serene hush, Nathan discovered Charlotte lost in thought on the porch swing, her solitude echoing the unspoken tension between them. The sultry summer air enveloped them, the faint chirping of crickets echoing in the stillness, a bittersweet reminder of the world outside their secret haven. As he drew near, she lifted her gaze, her features bathed in the gentle glow of the porch light, a moment suspended in time, heavy with unspoken longing. Rest eluded her as he whispered, his voice barely above a murmur, careful not to shatter the tranquility of the night. She shook her head, beckoning him to sit beside her, the air thick with unspoken desires and the weight of their circumstances. "My thoughts are tangled in a web of longing and despair." Nathan settled onto the swing, its creaking echoing the weight of unspoken desires between them. For a moment they lingered in silence, the air thick with unspoken desires and the weight of their circumstances. "I've been consumed by thoughts of you," he confessed, shattering the silence that hung between them. Charlotte turned to him, her breath hitching as her heart raced in disbelief. "Nathan," he interjected softly, his gaze intertwining with hers in a moment that felt both electric and perilous. Let me confess, you consume my every thought, Charlotte. You've consumed every corner of my thoughts, and I can no longer hide from the truth of my emotions. Her breath hitched in her throat as she averted her gaze, drawn instead to the shadowy expanse of the horizon. It's never that simple, she murmured, her voice laced with longing and despair. It is, he declared, his voice growing more resolute. What we share is undeniable, a connection that transcends the ordinary. Why resist the inevitable? Charlotte turned back to him, her gaze a tumultuous blend of desire and trepidation. Because it transcends our desires. There are repercussions, Nathan. They could never grasp the depth of our connection. Nathan's fingers intertwined with hers, his thumb caressing her knuckles with a tenderness that spoke of unspoken desires. I am unbothered by the opinions of others. My heart beats only for you. His words shattered the fragile barrier she had built around her heart. The barriers she had held onto for an eternity crumbled, and she surrendered to the pull, leaning in closer. Her lips met his in a kiss that held a mix of longing and softness, a moment charged with unspoken emotions. Nathan reacted without hesitation, his fingers finding their way to the nape of her neck, intensifying the kiss that spoke of unspoken desires. Their bond crackled with intensity, a blend of hidden desire and unfiltered feelings. The swing swayed gently as Nathan drew her nearer, his other hand lingering on her waist, a silent acknowledgement of the unspoken tension between them. Time felt suspended as they surrendered to the depths of their connection. All that existed was the intensity of their connection, a world where nothing else mattered. As they reluctantly separated, their foreheads lingered in a tender embrace, breaths intertwining in the sultry night air. Charlotte opened her eyes, her heart racing as she gazed at him, the weight of their unspoken connection hanging heavily in the air. This alters the course of our lives, she whispered. Good, Nathan said with a tender smile, for I can no longer bear the weight of pretense. Charlotte released a tremulous laugh, her heart caught in a tempest of elation and doubt. We must find a way to navigate this tangled web of emotions. We will, he vowed, his fingers entwined with hers, a silent promise that defied the world around them. The night lingered, yet for the first time Charlotte sensed a flicker of hope, a fragile belief that perhaps, just perhaps, their love could endure the trials that loomed before them. As the weeks melted into months, Charlotte and Nathan became entangled in a labyrinth of intense feelings and hidden truths. Their desire ignited fiercely, yet the burden of their connection's consequences cast a dark pall over their joy. One fateful evening, after a deeply emotional exchange, Charlotte resolved to follow her heart. In the dim light of her bedroom, she clasped Nathan's hands tightly, her gaze shimmering with the weight of unspoken emotions. We can't keep doing this, Nathan, she whispered, her voice quivering with a mix of longing and despair. Nathan's expression darkened, the fragile hope that had once illuminated his heart now wavering like a candle in the wind. Why must it be this way? I believed we were creating something profound. We were, she whispered, gripping his hands with desperation. And it was exquisite, yet it cannot endure. The universe conspires against them. She inhaled unsteadily, her voice trembling with emotion. My heart belongs to you, Nathan. That's why I must set you free. He shook his head, his gaze clouded with unshed tears. We will discover a path forward, no matter the obstacles that stand in our way. We both need to find clarity, no matter how hard this is. I would sacrifice it all for you, Charlotte. Just don't turn your back on this. Her heart throbbed with longing at his desperate words, yet she understood the path she must take. You are worthy of a love that flourishes in the light, free from the shadows of doubt and trepidation. You deserve a life free from the shadows, where you can embrace what we share without the weight of doubt or the fear of judgment. Nathan cradled her face in his hands, his thumbs gently wiping away the tears that fell like fragile whispers of sorrow. You are the sole spark in a world of chaos. In your absence, the world loses its meaning. Charlotte surrendered to his caress, imprinting the sensation of his hands on her skin, the way his affection ignited a fire within her soul. Yet, despite her longing to remain, she understood that their tale had come to a heartbreaking conclusion. They exchanged a final, breathless kiss, infusing every fragment of their passion and desire into that fleeting instant. As they reluctantly separated, their foreheads lingered in a tender embrace, neither ready to sever the fragile connection that bound them. "I'll never forget you," she whispered, her voice trembling with unspoken longing. "You'll forever reside in my heart," he responded, his voice heavy with unspoken feelings. With that, Charlotte withdrew, her heart heavy with the weight of unspoken desires. The space that separated them loomed like an insurmountable abyss. Nathan stood frozen, his heart heavy as he watched her retreating figure fade into the shadows of the hallway, each step echoing the unspoken words between them. He let her go, knowing the weight of their unspoken bond would linger in the air between them. He understood that this was her method of shielding them both, even if it resulted in shattered hearts. Years later, Charlotte found herself in a quaint cafe, the warmth of her coffee contrasting with the chill of memories as she observed the world swirling around her, each moment a reminder of what once was. Though her life had progressed, the echoes of her moments with Nathan remained, a haunting blend of longing and nostalgia. Her smile was gentle, a bittersweet reflection as her finger glided over the rim of her cup, the whispers of their love lingering like a haunting memory of what had been. Across the room, a figure she knew all too well drew her gaze. Nathan. As their eyes locked, an electric tension hung in the air, as if the world around them had faded away, leaving only the weight of their unspoken desires. He smiled at her, a blend of longing and tenderness flickering in his gaze. She returned the smile, her heart swelling with a bittersweet mix of elation and sorrow. In that fleeting moment, though they remained distant, an unspoken connection ignited between them, laden with the weight of their shared understanding. Their love, though ephemeral, carved a deep wound in their hearts, and at times, that was all they needed to endure.